Okay, I've got something for you. The new parts have been fitted to the car. The simulation numbers are good, so look forward to your feedback. Check out the details.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 Career Mode, episode number 26 today for the Monaco Grand Prix in Season 2. And finally, we have a new part fitted that is not a durability upgrade, thankfully. It's actually our third powertrain upgrade, or I say the team's third powertrain upgrade. Obviously, the first that I've purchased, but the Renault team AI did purchase 2 in Season 1 whilst I was at Toro Rosso, and we've gone ahead and finally got a third one. And on top of that, we also do have a durability one as well, for good measure, for the internal combustion engine that we purchased at the end of the last episode. Obviously, the engine one has been kind of been worked on for 2 weeks now, so 2 episodes ago we bought that one, so finally got that on the car. And so now, as I maybe briefly mentioned, I think last episode, my plan is now to try and go for that top step fuel technology power engine upgrade, but instead of going the conventional route through the powertrain tree, I'm gonna, just for curiosity really, but also it may be kind of a shortcut almost, is trying to do it via durability of the internal combustion engine, because if we buy the next 2, that will give us a shortcut from the dotted line to that top powertrain upgrade. Obviously, in terms of the other parts of the tree, Renault's pretty damn good. We're still on the top of the pile, best of the rest for aerodynamics, and just about level with Toro Rosso on the chassis side. So those 2 areas, for me personally, I'm going to ignore for now and really just focus on that powertrain and the durability. And I think the shortcut way is going to be the way to go about it, because really, actually, even though it's been okay reliability, I guess, now we're getting to a bit of a choke point on this engine, where I'm realizing that, yeah, the Renault is actually pretty damn hard actually on reliability. Actually, you know, I thought it was going pretty well in the first 5 episodes. Kind of, I've been talking about kind of sharing the first 2 columns, but in reality, if you think about it, we're on the 6th race only, and my column 2 is already pretty worn on the internal combustion engine and the MGUK, and nearly the H as well. So yeah, it's getting a little bit hairy, so that's why I'm thinking of going that shortcut route, because I think we're going to need that durability. And also, if you think about it, I think at this stage, at least in my opinion right now, I think we're thinking long-term here. I think I'm going to be here at Renault for the next season, Season 3 at least, so thinking long-term, if I can get the durability upgrades all out of the way right now, if I'm working on those, that's going to be quite a long-term benefit for us as a team, as a unit. It means I can just focus on performance parts later down the line in this season and then into the next, so I think it's a win-win, really. And at the same time, at the end of the day, I'm actually just curious to see this shortcut, really, because it's the only shortcut available, the only dotted line in the tree, so it's kind of exciting that way, I guess. But anyway, we went through the practice programs, and as per usual, there was no real dramas there. We got the full points here at Monaco. Monaco practice programs aren't too difficult, in my opinion, so we went through there, and we're straight into qualifying then, our first flying lap. You can see not the best turn 1 there. Overcast conditions at Monaco here for the start of qualifying, so it meant the track felt a little bit colder maybe than practice did, and we actually went out for another second lap in Q1 here, which was a little bit surprising to me. I didn't feel like we would have needed it, but we actually were only P15, so we were right on the bubble of being knocked out. So I just did a safety second lap, and thankfully I did that because we moved up into P10, otherwise it would have been actually very, very close. And the same can be said for Nico in P12, so no dramas there for the Renault boys, and we move swiftly on to Q2. Now, at the same time, I haven't mentioned it so far, but obviously from last episode, we did have a gearbox issue in Spain. We lost the gear during our flying lap in Q3, and then we lost it momentarily at the start of the race in the first stint. Now, through this entire qualifying session in Q1 and Q2, I don't believe we had any gear issues. In practice, we did lose one of the gears during the practice programs, but in the Q1 and Q2 lap, that it was all fine. So we actually come across the line. We set up a pretty decent lap time for Q2, actually. We do go out for a second flying lap because we're in P9, so once again on the bubble, but it was a pretty decent first lap. But I went again as we dropped down to P11, then we come across the line and we do get back up into P6. Although I felt like it was a comfortable lap in that first attempt into Q2, we had to do a second lap once again, but we did get it. And Nico, unfortunately, you can see though, very, very close, narrowly missed out on Q3. So really annoying there. Otherwise, it would have been a double kind of twice in a row now, the 2 Renaults getting to Q3. So that was a little bit annoying, but we got in there, so we're in P6. But as I mentioned, as I've been talking, we had no faults with the gearbox. We start Q3 off with a fault to the fuel system, as one caveat. So the first time time I've had a fuel system fault. Obviously, if you remember back to, I think it was the Hungarian Grand Prix in Season 1, we had a brake failure issue in qualifying. It didn't mean much because I ended up changing all my engine components back in that Toro Rosso in Hungary. But here, I'm not changing any components, so I had a fuel system fault. That meant I only had one attempt at a flying lap in Q3. You can see it's not started very well. Really poor turn 1, lost the back end a little bit, and then throughout the lap, I think at some point I do lose a gear, I think, if I remember correctly. So all in all, wasn't the best kind of way to enter Q3, having that fault and then only having the pressure of having one lap. And you can see getting a little bit wayward into the swimming pool chicane, down to Raskas here in second, first gear even to get the car really turned in there. It's not been a very good lap, so I don't think this is going to be any better than maybe even P10 as Raikkonen sets the provisional pole position. We come across the line, and as I said, it is going to be P10, unfortunately. So bit of an unfortunate and frustrating day in the office, to say the least, at Monaco in Q3. It was going so well in Q1 and Q2, and then, yeah, a little bit of double misery there in terms of that. And it probably is going to be a very tough Grand Prix ahead of us, to be honest, because that gearbox, we're not going to change it. I'm going to stick with it because I don't want to get the penalty for 5 places. Here at Monaco, taking a 5-place grid penalty is going to be a lot worse than other places where maybe I would have definitely considered it. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tough one because we definitely are going to lose a gear at some point in this race, just like we did in Spain. If we lost it in Spain, we're definitely going to lose it here at Monaco. But after qualifying, we did actually have enough points to do another 500-point upgrade to durability, so I went ahead and did the second gearbox development there because we've, you know, the gearbox has been wearing very much. So I thought, let's go for a second one. As I just said before, long-term plan here at Renault. If we get these upgrades out of the way, it's going to really benefit us greatly down the line at the end of this season and into Season 3. So that's how we're doing that. So we spent those points there. Let's get into the race and let's see that final grid sequence.
Joining me to talk you through the action today is Anthony Davidson. And give us an idea of what kind of thing you're going to be looking out for today.
Well, the big question for me is whether or not we're going to see the cars able to follow each other closely enough to overtake, especially through the fast sections here. Of course, we've got DRS, and that will help on the straights, but it's still no good if you're coming off the previous corner too slowly or too far behind.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Kimi Raikkonen's perfect lap yesterday sees him start from pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Bottas, Sergio Perez, and Ocon, Magnussen, and a Renault, Sainz, and Daniel Ricciardo, Grosjean, Massa, Daniel Kvyat, and Verstappen, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso, and Marcus Ericsson, Wehrlein, and Stoffel van Dorn completes the grid.
Right, so here we are for the start of the Monaco Grand Prix in P8, actually, not P10. So we jump up 2 places due to some penalties for some other drivers. So I guess you could say maybe in hindsight, if I had known about those penalties, then I would have taken a gearbox penalty myself. But unfortunately on the game, once you go to the race and the grid, you can't go back and take your grid. You can't go and swap out your gearbox, which obviously makes sense because otherwise that's a little bit like cheating if you know other AI cars are going to have grid penalties. So we just have to suck it up and deal with it. But you may have noticed I've got to mention, actually, before we went to the grid sequence with Crofty and Anthony Davidson, you may have seen that I was using a lot of the engine parts of column 1 in qualifying and for this race, actually, because my thinking there was, it's Monaco, obviously one of the circuits where power is not going to be as much. It's still a factor, but it's not going to be as much. So this is the best place to take the hit because I knew either way I'm going to be taking a hit on the gearbox. There will be a gear missing, so we're going to really eke out all we can of that column for at least the internal combustion engine and both MGU Ks and Hs, just so that we can kind of be in better stead for later on in the season. At some point, maybe I will have to take that 5th engine penalty, but if I can delay it and just kind of help the rest of the engine components, then that's my thought process there. Will it end up being the right one? I'm not too sure, but that's my thinking going into this race, and that's what I went with. But let's get into this. You can see the strategy is going to be that bog standard 1 stop for Monaco. Obviously, it's not going to be rainy, you can see on the monitor, so it is going to be that standard 1 stop there. Having said that, it's Monaco on the F1 game, so unlike real life, this race is always predictably unpredictable here. So here we go to 5 red lights for the Monaco Grand Prix. Round number 6 is underway here for Season 2, and Magnussen with a great start there, and up ahead a really poor one for Bottas and Hamilton as Perez nips down the inside into turn 1. Bottas into the wall as we nip down the inside of Ocon, though. Up the hill, we've got gear problems. We've got big issues here. Our gear has got stuck. We're stuck in 3rd, 4th gear. The gears are taking an absolute age to change up. We've lost 3 positions back to the Force Indy car, Massa and Daniel Ricciardo. So we've got major calamities already. I said we were going to get a gearbox issue in this race. I didn't think it'd be quite as early as literally the exit of turn 1, but our gearbox is seriously messed up at the moment. We can't even change gears properly at this moment in time. Obviously you guys can't hear it, but I'm just literally slamming my gear shifters on my wheel, trying to change up and down in gears, but the gearbox is basically lagging by about 5 seconds. The safety car gets called out, which is our saving grace. This is going to save our bacon for now, because I was in serious issues. You can see here now we move on to lap 2. We're behind Ricciardo. We're P8 now in the running order. You can see though my car is not changing from 5th gear this entire time. As I said, you can't hear it, but if I did have a mic hooked up to my live commentary, you would just hear me slamming the gear shifters on my wheel, desperately trying to make the gearbox work, and it just wouldn't. So a very odd situation. I've had the gears jam before in previous career modes. I've had the missing gear. I've never had the gearbox lag that much and just have a mind of its own. So thankfully though, on the restart of the safety car, we do have the gearbox back in full functionality, so that issue was only there for the first 2 laps. On lap 3 though, we've got it completely back now. You can see I'm trying to hound Ricciardo a little bit, off-put him a little bit as we go onto the green flag and restart this race. We go down the inside to the final corner. Very cheeky move, but I'm just preempting the fact that there probably will be another gearbox failure and some kind of jammed issue later on this race. You know, you would probably think if it's coming already on lap 1, so I have to take every opportunity I can to try and just be as cheeky as I can and overtake some positions when they kind of present themselves to me. So you can see we did go down the inside of Ricciardo, and you could see on the replay camera as we climbed up the hill towards the Casino Square. Also, I think it was Carlos Sainz there, my old teammate, also took that opportunity to catch Ricciardo napping and go down his inside into turn 1. So we move swiftly now onto lap 7. So 4 laps later, it's taken us to close up to Felipe Massa, but now with a fully functioning gearbox, we are catching up to these cars now, so we do have the pace. I'm going to maybe try and make a move down the inside. Raskas, so close, but on the exit, we lose the back end completely, go completely opposite lock and sideways, and thankfully, actually, I should thank my lucky stars I didn't spin that car out into the pit lane, basically, because I was so nearly literally 90-degree perpendicular to Massa's car. So we tried to make that move, that trademark move that I love so much at Monaco, work there, but it just didn't work out. Massa had me, and I just didn't get the traction right on the exit of Raskas there. But you know, good to know I can still make that move in this Renault car as well as that Toro Rosso from last season. And for now, looks like the lack of kind of power in the engine from the wear from that column 1 engine components isn't kind of affecting us too much at this stage. We move on to lap 12 now, so 4 laps later, so another 4 laps, and we're going to size up this same exact move now. It's even later than before, so close. Literally a pixel was probably separating my right front tyre to the Armco barrier on the right hand side, but we make the move this time. We don't get it wrong on the traction, and we go down the inside of Massa on that final corner to get up into P6 with a beautiful little move there. And that is probably going to be the best overtake I make this afternoon, because it may be a little bit harder on some other cars. We've got Kevin Magnussen, obviously we know how hard he likes to defend in real life, but we move on to lap 15 now. 3 laps later, unfortunately nothing much happened. We couldn't unfortunately catch Magnussen. He actually had some very decent pace, to be fair to him, in that Haas. So we do come in for our first and only pit stop of the afternoon, actually. Well, you would like to think, hopefully, our only pit stop of the afternoon. And of course it's going to be for the set of super soft tyres. You can see the Haas team working on Kevin Magnussen's car, so he comes in on the same lap there, so that'll be a nice comparison. Maybe you can see he's way down the actual pit lane by the time I get released. So yeah, as I said, Magnussen did actually surprisingly pull away a little bit from me in those 3 laps then after we overtook Massa. So maybe alluding to, maybe as we go on through this race, obviously those column 1 engine parts are going to be wearing more and more, so I don't think our pace is going to get any better, to be honest, and it may have to be a very damage limitation race for us, to be honest. But we just come out ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, just about. You can see he's very close to our gearbox there, so thankfully we are ahead of him, because we can just have the track position at Monaco, classic Monaco scenario, and just defend and make the track as wide, make our car as wide as possible to kind of meet the track. But we close up to Esteban Ocon now, who we find ourselves in a bit of a train here, because a few cars up ahead of Ocon are still scrapping away as Ocon comes to the pits. Yellow flags though, and there's been a bit of contact there between Bottas, I think, and the car ahead of him, who is Lance Stroll, I think, in the Williams car. Bottas going slowly. He does have DRS, but we're going to make a diving lunge from so far back there down the inside. Bottas completely caught out there and just unaware of us even coming down the inside, so he just had no clue, probably so surprised in the cockpit there. And we made a great pass Haas on a Mercedes car, and now we find ourselves right at the back of Lance Stroll. So it looks like it's actually maybe our teammate Hulkenberg who's holding up this train here. So we go down the inside of Mirabeau on the young Canadian, very, very close. Our rear tyre taps the little curbing there, and we just about skip the car through, and that is a very nice move. And now we're on the back of Hulkenberg potentially now. He's on a set of ultra softs at the moment, and we're on lap 17. So Nico deciding to take that first set very, very long and kind of reduce the time he's on the same set of tyres I'm on at the moment. We're going to take a quick replay look at what actually went on here, just to kind of see whose fault this was. And it looks like it's actually Lance Stroll's kind of fault in terms of the domino effect. Looks like he hit the wall, and then Bottas must have made some contact there, but we didn't quite see it. But that was the kind of ricochet movement, so it wasn't actually Hulkenberg's issue there. So he was just out in front ahead of Stroll. We go down the inside, speaking of Hulkenberg, to the inside of Raskas. He gives us a lot of room, to be fair to him. So our teammate giving us some respect there around Monaco, because Massa definitely squeezed us a little bit harder, and you can see we get past very, very easily, and we get past also Carlos Sainz, which is good to see, because if we got held up any more in that train, let's say it didn't overtake Bottas, Stroll and Hulkenberg so rapidly on one lap, making 3 moves on one lap, we may have potentially come out behind Sainz, but thankfully we have not, and so we move way later into the Grand Prix. You can see it's now lap 30, so we've only got 8 laps left in this Grand Prix as we go into lap 31, but now my engine is really wearing out, and up the hill in a simple drag race, straight line speed, up the hill, Sainz able to send it down the inside. We go side by side with an Inter Casino Square, trying my hardest to fight him back here. We're gonna dive it down the inside of Mirabeau as well, lock up on the right tyre, just about skid into Sainz's path, and we're going to try and go round the outside, bit audacious, and then by this point, just so close. I have to give up the position. Really, really unfortunate. Sainz not giving me much room. Obviously, with the new 2017 cars, that's always going to be a very, very tricky place to go side by side. It already was in the older cars, but obviously now with the wider ones, yeah, it's near impossible, so I just had to give that up. If I was on the inside, I probably could have done what Sainz did to me and just take the inside line, squeeze the guy out on the right, and then you would have got the place. But obviously, because I made the move down the inside of Mirabeau, that wasn't possible. So, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the engine wear just constantly going throughout this entire race meant my car was going slower and slower by the lap, basically. And so Sainz, that was a little bit embarrassing, to be honest. Up the hill, he just got me in a straight line. Obviously, it wasn't the best entry into turn 1, but still. And now you can see on lap 35, we've got another similar situation like we had in season 1, where we had blue flags and a Red Bull potentially abusing the blue flags to overtake me. Thankfully, this time it's Ricciardo, not Verstappen, but this time the Red Bull does not overtake me by using the blue flag car to his advantage. Obviously, last time I think it was Bottas, I want to say, and this time it was the other Finn of Kimi Raikkonen, who's had a very comfortable lead of the Monaco Grand Prix all race long, I'm pretty sure. But now you can see onto lap 36, we have lost the back end into the final corner and into turn 1 now. Ricciardo carries the speed around the outside and shows what good of a chassis that Red Bull car has and how good of the aero is, as he manages to find space somehow to make a very unorthodox move around the outside of turn 1 and then up the hill. Even the Red Bull now at this stage is outpowering me up the hill. So yeah, I mean, I maybe had it coming. You know, I said to you guys at the very start of the race that I knew it was going to be the big hit, the damage limitation. You know, I knew the gearbox was going to go, and it went, you know, at lap 1. So I felt the need to take the engine component as far as we could. We're moving away from us for a little bit here in this race and moving to the other Renault car of Nico Hulkenberg. And there's a bit of an incident that's going to occur here. Danica Fiat, he's actually being lapped, and he breaks his front wheel and causes an absolute traffic jam here at the chicane. So Hulkenberg does lose a little bit of his front wing, I think. And also the same can be said of Lewis Hamilton there. So the Russian gets it all wrong. It was actually a pretty slow crash, actually, it looked like there back on the replay camera. So I'm surprised the wheel actually came off. But Hulkenberg, the reason why I'm focusing on him, actually, not just because of that incident, but at the moment, as it stands here, you can see on track right now, he is somehow in P2 on super soft tyres. Hamilton comes in after the damage he sustained. So he's sustained enough damage from that incident to actually come into the pit. So he's going to be down the order. But yeah, my teammate, Nico Hulkenberg, was in P2, or it still is in P2 at the moment. I don't know quite how. I feel like the game is glitched a little bit because I don't know how he's conceivably got into P2, but he is there in P2, I can assure you. But now onto lap 30, I should say, my last lap of the Grand Prix, because we have been lapped, so it is my last lap of the Grand Prix. And you can hear there down the tunnel, my gearbox is jammed again. You can clearly see on the bottom right as well, I'm finding it a struggle to change up from 4th to 3rd to 5th, and the rev is absolutely going crazy as I'm trying once again to desperately just slam my gear shifter on my wheel to save this. And at this point I was panicking that I was going to have to go around around for a whole another lap. But then the saving grace was on the top left. Kimi Raikkonen has won the Grand Prix. It is my last official lap of the race. On the line, though, Felipe Massa is going to overtake us. Unfortunately, we don't have the speed, we don't have the gearbox, and we actually come home for only P10, 1 measly point. So, damage limitation, it's debatable how much damage we actually limited, to be honest, in that race. And I was really, really pissed off that Massa was able to get us there on the line, but I literally just didn't have the gear. I was slamming that right shifter as hard as I could to make the gearbox work, but in the end, it didn't matter. The game, you know, decided my gearbox was going to get jammed and get delayed, so I just couldn't shift up from 3rd to 4th or to 5th fast enough there for the car to gain enough speed in a straight line. So them's the brakes, really. And in a spectacular turn of events, Sergio Perez, overtaking both Mercedes cars into turn 1 on lap 1, has ended up in P2 on the podium. A fantastic result there for Sergio Perez. Not so much for us, as that's going to get a good amount of points for Force India, but it's a win for Kimi Raikkonen. It's a double podium for the Ferrari guys, in stark contrast to what has been a very consistent kind of showing for Mercedes ever since the beginning of Season 1, really. But there you can see Nico Hulkenberg finishes up in 7th place, but he was in P2, and I'll show you a little replay a little bit later on that can confirm that, and maybe kind of just shows you the little glitch there. So Carlos Sainz ends up actually being ahead of Nico Hulkenberg in 6th place, but still, even with that, Hulkenberg moves up ahead into P7 now, Perez up into P8, Ricciardo down the order. Unfortunately, still unable to really make any headway against Red Bull, but we are pretty close, actually. You can see the difference of points between Red Bull and Renault. Not too bad, actually. I mean, obviously a huge difference to Mercedes and Ferrari, and a pretty big one actually to behind us to Force India. So that's why I'm so eager to maybe fight Red Bull, because they're the only team at the moment that I can kind of see in my sight. But here's the glitch anyway, the replay. You can see there on the wheel, P2 was clearly there on the top right for Nico. This is on board with Nico, and then it changed to P7, and that was as I finished the race. So yeah, I literally have no explanation for that. A little bit odd, The game just decided to move him down from P2 to P7. I don't know, in a very kind of, very funny but kind of not so funny way. Maybe the game's even kind of cursing Hulkenberg to never get that career podium that he's still yet to get in real life. So a little bit harsh there from Cody's in the game. But anyway, guys, if you have enjoyed that episode, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.